Welcome
to the high school reunion.
But the thing you've been dreading this whole time.
I guess, Justin, you went to our high school reunion, right?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
I was the only one of us three that was there.
Yeah, well, this is the real one.
Okay, yeah. Class of
We've been planning it.
2008.
Everyone knows you're supposed to plan 11-year reunions. Holy shit. 11 sounds way bigger than 10 also.
It's very exclusive. There's only 3 of us here.
Listen, 11 years is when I finally got my shit together.
Yeah, this is exactly what that is.
Us having our shit together. So let's talk about a TV show from the 90s. But not even the TV show, the movie that came after it. But wait a minute. The deleted scenes from that movie that weren't released until 22 years later. That's right.
We got our shit together.
Just like David Lynch. Hey, it took us half the time. It only took us 11 years. That fool took 22.
Yeah.
Twin Peaks 2 times 11 is 22.
Which peak are we? This is an illustrious beginning to this episode.
Hit us with the real intro.
Welcome to the high school reunion.
Shit.
Stuck in a time loop. No, we're the Rewatchers on the Lodge, and we are just doing a quick bonus episode. We're going to talk
episode.
Whoa, new sound effects. We're going to be doing that more often. We are going to talk about some of the stuff that was released between Firewalk with Me, the movie, and the return in 2017, namely the deleted scenes, the missing pieces from Firewalk with Me, and Mark Frost's book, The Secret History of Twin Peaks. So we're not even going to go through every scene in these. Go watch them, though. I think they're really fun, and some of them are really bad. I will say not even some of them, like a couple of them I'm like, dumb, just dumb shit. But the rest of it, let's kind of talk about some of the stuff that people probably wanted to see after the series. The first scene I have on here is just the scene with Cooper talking to Diane, who we still don't see.
Yeah.
And is basically
or here.
Yeah.
Matter.
Yeah. She also
Cooper.
does not speak. Yeah. It's him talking into a room, presumably. Who knows what it is, actually. And I am not a huge fan of this scene. The line, another win for the dashing Agent Cooper that he says is like makes me want to die a little bit. Not a big fan of that. But it did, I mean, I guess if you're a fan of the show, it maybe establishes that Diane exists in some form. She's just some Japanese body pillow that lives in Cooper's office. Yeah, I'm not entirely sure. I'm not sure with that scene. So I do want to talk about very quickly. We'll talk about Philip Jeffries later and some of the more important stuff too. But the end of that whole arc where you see him reappear in Argentina has one of my favorite lines ever committed to celluloid, which is when he reappears in Argentina and that poor maid is screaming and screaming, and that bellhop just utters the line, "Mr. Jeffries, oh, the shit, it come out of my ass." And then just screams, "Ayúdame! Ayúdame!" Which I'm not sure if he's asking for help for Jeffries or for his own mess that he has just created in his pants.
And then all the while, David Bowie's just reaching out, going, yeah,
like overdubbed in a weird way. Like it's really bizarre.
It's a very strange ending to a really kind of horrifying sequence.
Yeah, for sure.
Really weird choices.
That has to be one of the first scenes, Twin Peaks related scenes I showed you, right?
Oh yeah, I think all my first experiences with Twin Peaks, all the footage you showed me was from either one scene from Firewalk with Me, and then I think like 3 scenes from The Missing Pieces.
Yep, yeah,
was my first impression of Twin Peaks.
Yeah. That's really bizarre.
And still, I had no idea what I was getting into.
Yeah. How could you not have known?
I'm still not sure. I know even this far into it.
Yeah, it's really bizarre. I guess some of the other like fan servicey scenes, we see the return of Pete and Josie in just a scene about lumbering.
I just with this scene and a few other scenes like with Ed and and who else? And Norma, and then like there was one other one with another character that wasn't in Firewalk with Me. That's like all those scenes. I definitely understand why they were deleted.
Yeah,
there's
for sure.
Nothing. They add zero to the movie.
They're all scenes that I kind of enjoy, and especially if it's like I can imagine being a person who had just watched the TV show while it was on the air. Like those are probably the scenes I expected to see when I went to a movie, a Twin Peaks movie. But yeah, that scene is literally about lumber with the guy who is only in one other episode of Twin Peaks and we saw get blown up and his glasses fly through the air.
It's a really long gag to throw in there.
Yeah.
Also, side note, Josie's makeup doesn't match her skin tone. Looks
and
fire the makeup person.
We didn't
was
need
it
Josie,
was the audio for this like a really rough voiceover for that one, or was it just my setup that the audio
I don't know.
was totally out of sync with the
notice
video?
it in particular.
Huh. It was bad when I was watching it.
Interesting. And none of the other scenes were?
No.
Oh yeah. See that? Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. Like I don't know how much work was done. I mean, these are obviously like for the most part finished scenes. Mm-hmm. There's maybe only one, like the scene of Mike backwards unlighting the candles. Yeah. That's like just way out of left field. I'm like, I'm not even sure where this would fit in.
Yeah, exactly.
But the rest of them feel pretty put together. But yeah, I'm sure there are times where like they just don't have good audio or something or whatever. But yeah, any other scenes like that? Oh, let's talk about the sheriff department scene with
Hawk.
Truman.
That's another one that I was like, why?
Right. Just remember it.
Wait, which one are you talking? Are you talking about the one with Lucy, or are you talking about? Okay, I thought you were talking about the one before where they're.
Is it two separate scenes?
I think it is.
There's one where it's just
Truman, Hawk, and Andy in the room together, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they're talking about, I don't even know who they're talking about. They're talking about someone approaching on foot coming across the border.
Yeah, so they're talking
lay
about
a trap
one of the
somebody.
Renaults.
Yeah.
I believe the Renault that they capture is the Bookhouse Boys that has the Creole accent, sort of.
I was like, oh yeah, okay, let's stop following Jacques. Let's follow this other guy. I'm like, have you guys been trying to catch these guys forever? You just really suck.
It's just been Wile E. Coyote and the Roadrunner up here with the Renault brothers running cocaine back and forth across the border. And the sheriff's department not getting anywhere because their receptionist doesn't know how telecommunications work.
Yeah.
Just remember that fact. If there's anything to take from those scenes, it's that Lucy does not understand how that stuff works, and David Lynch really likes that idea.
Well, we do have a connection possibly with, it could be something with Mr. Jeffries, because in this missing pieces scene, Gordon Cole also tries to use an intercom and doesn't work. And then my favorite is like, what's going on? Am I alone in here? And he turns and he's gone.
Yes, that is such a good moment.
And then she says something kind of similar. She's like on the intercom. She's like, if I'm not talking to you, then who am I talking to? So maybe he was there and he causes electrical interference.
Probably
because he's been spent so much time in that lodge that now he has electrical interference radiating off of him.
That's it.
It's the origin story for Static Shock.
Add it to the list.
Static
Shock is from the Black Lodge. We're not gonna. That was not on purpose.
Okay. Are there any other of those more fan servicey scenes? Oh, let's talk about some of the Bobby stuff. There's actually quite a few scenes with Bobby that were cut. Which again, I also understand. But they're also kind of cool.
Those feel a little bit more, at least like they fit into the movie, though, than like the Josie thing or anything like that.
Yeah. But yeah, Justin, you said in particular you wanted to talk about the scene where he realizes he's got baby laxative.
Yeah, so he finds out that he So from Fire Walk with Me, we believe that he killed somebody to Bobby's credit, largely in self-defense. The guy was going to kill him. But he believes he kills somebody over cocaine, and he's going back to do something with the body, maybe? I don't know why he goes back to that location. But he pulls out the bag of cocaine and tests it, puts some in his mouth, and realizes that it's baby laxative, which is a really odd thing to pick up on immediately. Yeah.
Well, Cooper does the same thing when they go to that stupid house for some reason. He finds the cocaine in the sink, and he's like, "Oh, it's baby laxative." So I'm like, I guess maybe if you deal cocaine, you just have so much baby laxative to cut with stuff that.
Yeah, maybe that's like a popular because it's hard to distinguish or something.
Yeah. I'm not sure, but
I haven't done enough coke in my day to know.
Yeah. But yeah, it did seem like a dangerous amount of baby laxative to be hurling around in the woods in the way that he does.
I think my favorite part about all that is in the movie, we're led to believe that, like in that next scene, Laura's snorting in her bed. We're led to believe that she's actually snorting cocaine because we don't have the other missing piece where she finds out.
Yeah, that's true. Because Laura finds out later on.
I feel like watching that again kind of ruins it because you're like,
oh man, yeah, what a thing.
She's gonna have shit coming out of her ass.
That's why he had shit.
Oh my gosh, the bellhop did the cocaine.
Any other scenes like that you want to talk about before we get to some of the weirder stuff?
I mean, since it's kind of related, but I feel like this one's a little more interesting. Is the Dr. Jacoby?
Oh yeah, let's talk about that
scene.
Yeah,
where
which you mentioned specifically on our last podcast that you wanted. That was something you wanted more of.
Yeah,
or wanted some of it.
It wasn't quite what I wanted from that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, there was stuff there that I appreciated, but it did kind of confirm. I mean, obviously there was that whole undertone behind it, and it was pretty obvious. But it did, I feel like, kind of cement that Dr. Jacoby was getting some sort of sexual favor out of these tapes.
Right.
Whereas before I felt it was kind of like purposely ambiguous of he's a creepy dude, and it was kind of like almost like a misdirect, like, oh, he's actually trying to help her, but it seems like he's just, so I feel like this cements that as, yeah, he's a pretty shitty dude.
Yeah,
like,
for sure.
I mean, that's all that really confirms. I feel like there's not like a whole lot else. I'm always interested to see things, particularly in Fire Walk with Me, of what I thought characters' interactions with Laura were like versus what they really were.
Yeah.
And that's one of them where I was like, oh, I mean, obviously she was at a point in her life where she was a lot more panicked and spiraling downward, but she was a lot more short and intense with him than I thought their exchanges were normally.
Right.
And that was something that surprised me with the movie about kind of Leland's relationship with his family. It was a lot darker and intense than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah. Yeah, which is interesting. And in the missing pieces, there's a couple scenes, I'll say. There's the throwaway scene of him walking out the door and be like, hey, don't forget it's Johnny Horn's birthday today. Yeah. Like, very important plot point that was cut entirely from the film. But then the bigger scene, and probably one of my favorite scenes in this collection, is the scene where he comes in and teaches them how to say my name is whatever in Norwegian.
Yeah.
And that really does feel like a fun just family thing of like the derfy dad just like making everyone participate in this kind of dumb joke that they're not on board with, and then everyone just getting way into it.
It seems, I actually really like that scene because that's what I was kind of expecting, and also I think adds a little bit more I don't know, almost believability to the whole relationship between, especially Leland.
Yeah.
Humanizes him a little bit more than what we saw in Fire Walk with Me. It kind of makes me feel like it's old Leland again from the show.
Right.
And I don't know, it's also very relatable because it's one of those things, for what I'm about to say, it's one of those things that with your family you have like an inside joke that you know is so stupid that you don't tell anyone else because it's such an inside joke and it's so stupid. It's a double whammy of I got to keep this under lock because it's that dumb. And And we all have those, I feel like.
Yeah.
And that's definitely one of those for Laura. I feel like no one else is going to hear it from her, but it's going to be something that's going to be brought up again in that household.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that we get to see a different side of Sarah Palmer in that scene that we don't really see anywhere else. Because in the show, she's just so distraught constantly, and even in the movie, for the most part, she is very unhappy. But that's like a really nice scene. I think another nice scene is I want to talk about the stuff between Laura and Sarah, because there's two scenes that are cut that I think are really great. The first is when the cigarette scene where she comes in with all the groceries and she's got the cigarette in her mouth or whatever, and Laura takes it so she can talk to her, and then takes the keys and then goes out the door and brings back the keys or whatever that whole exchange is. I think is really great. And I love also Sarah Palmer saying to Laura Palmer, you'll never become a smoker if you don't start. Yeah. I'm like,
you're like, that's the last of your words with this girl.
Yeah. I'm like, oh, she be smoking a lot.
She smoked things you've never even heard of.
She was smoking. And then the other scene is, I believe is it following the fan scene?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The fan scene itself is great, but the tone of that scene it's once again finishing off a really dark scene with like this weird gag that is really funny.
Yeah, well, the sweater thing, right?
Yeah, she's like, have you seen my blue sweater? Mom, what are you wearing?
Yeah.
Like, I love how you can go from like almost being possessed by the devil to like having a snarky quip at your mom.
You're a true teen. Like, that is peak teen. I will say that it's funny because that scene also, like, it switches tone, but it's still kind of a dark, weird thing. Like, there's this weird unaddressed history of...
Sarah says it's happening again.
Yeah.
It's happening again, which we've heard before, obviously.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, the idea that her memory is failing her, which kind of hints at her being drugged constantly by Leland, like stuff like that. But yeah, it's really interesting. Let's talk about that fan scene that goes right before that, because I feel like it's one of the more iconic.
This is one of the three scenes you showed me.
Right. Yeah. And I think part of what I love that shot of her face in this scene where her mouth just imperceptibly morphs into the most garishly frightening smile.
This terrified me because I didn't really notice it when it happened, and I was like it got me. Like that slow smile, like I didn't pick up on it immediately, and when I noticed, like this is really creepy.
Yeah, it's really bizarre. It honestly, this thing that reminded me of this scene when I saw it is in Mandy, when Jeremiah is talking to Mandy when she's super high, and it slowly like superimposes her face over his, and then like undoes it again. Like that was another one of those moments.
Enough,
I was like, oh shit, what's happening? Something has happened, and I missed it. Like it's really, really crazy.
So I don't know if we've talked about this. I can't recall that if we have. Do you feel, either of you, that Laura is slowly being possessed by Bob throughout this?
Yeah.
And kind of connecting that with our previous theory of like abuse begets more abuse and derangement and evil. With her abuse by Leland Bob, maybe that's how he spreads, type of thing. Is that a theory you've heard before? Is that something what do you guys think about that?
Yeah. Do you have any thoughts on that, Justin?
I hadn't thought that previously, but now that you say that, are there scenes with Laura and mirrors? I have this memory of like a scene where she is looking into a mirror. It's
in Fire Walk with Me. When she's getting murdered, he puts her face over this mirror that's on the ground.
That's right.
And it's Bob's face.
Yeah. And I think that we should talk more about it, because I feel like the reason, so like, okay, Bob does not want to kill Laura in that train car, because it's when she puts the ring on that he's like, don't make me do this, don't make me do this, then he kills her. And I think that what he's trying to do is to possess her in the way that he's possessed Leland. And I think the reason Ronette is there is to solidify that. Whether he was going to use Laura to kill Ronette, which would then like push her past some point of no return that would make him possess her. I don't know. That's like my own. I don't know if that's real or not at all, but that's how I've always seen it. Yeah. And I think that the scene with Harold earlier in the film, when she grabs him and she's like, "Fire, walk with me," and then me again, and it cuts to just that close up of her mouth, where it's like the black lips and the white face. That we only see one other time with Leland when he goes to Glastonbury Grove. Like, I think there are pieces of him in her. You know what I mean? Like, that is happening.
I mean, I definitely feel that way because, like, yeah, those things you mentioned. Plus, there's that time that James talks about where he's like, and she says things that Leland, under Bob's influence, has also said, like, "Do you want to play with fire, little boy?"
Yeah.
Like that type of stuff.
That's true. Yeah.
So I feel like that's, at least from what I can see, that's my theory, is that's how the parasites kind of work. Is it's not like a immediate possession. It's like you have to slowly work your way into someone.
Yeah.
Whether that be via violence or whatever that is.
Yeah. Well, and the train car would also insinuate that there's a ritual. There's something that happens with that mound of dirt and those candles, and possibly that mirror is, you know what I mean? Like, is involved in that somehow. But yeah, for sure. Cool. There any other Laura things that we want to talk about?
You're right, Donna. I'm the muffin.
I'm the muffin.
Thought it was no Donna.
That's right. Yeah. That whole scene.
Which that
is pretty cool.
With the added context of that scene, when you go back and watch in the pink room, there's that scene where someone talks to Jacques and he's like, "I'm not Jacques. I'm the great Went," and he says that line, and then he looks at Laura and she just says, "I'm the muffin," which, like, in that, like, that scene gives a really weird and kind of like actually an interesting context to that moment, and I think kind of enriches that scene. It takes a long time for that scene to get there, but I think we should talk about that scene at the Haywards too, with Doc Hayward. Because I do think I love that scene with Donna, and Doc Hayward's scene with her is really sweet and foreshadows the end of the movie, like in a very oblique and clear way. But yeah, what an interesting. That's an interesting scene too. I don't know. I have a
the Hayward home makes me uncomfortable.
Does
I'm
it?
just gonna say it.
Just because it's so frilly.
Just because it's so 90s seminary video.
Okay,
yeah. It's just look. You know those religious families that, like, they're not polygamous, but they feel like. You know how killing small animals is like the sign of a serial killer?
Uh-huh.
I feel like the things the Haywards do,
that home decor,
and like those religious families do, is the precursor to polygamy compounds. Like, you let them go free will a little bit more, they're gonna start a compound.
I can't wait for you to see season 3.
Oh, great!
Just kidding. Nothing. That's nothing. Yeah. So let's. I think those are some of the main things. There's some stuff with Teresa. Teresa kind of calls, you kind of get more of a reason for Leland to kill her. She kind of has a sort of blackmail call with him where she calls and that stuff, which is interesting. But let's talk real quick about the convenience store and Philip Jeffries scenes, which in this collection are broken out, whereas before they are kind of cut together. I mean, basically the convenience store scene is cut over the Philip Jeffries stuff. We mainly just see that and hear his audio in the background. But you see a little bit more of that. You get his whole scene. You get an extended scene in the convenience store, which anytime I get to watch more surreal bullshit like that, I'll take it.
Oh yeah, I'm a sucker for that, but I don't understand any more than I did
right
from the movie.
Yeah, it doesn't necessarily add anything. I think the greater benefit is you get to hear all of Philip Jeffries' dialogue, which is still extremely cryptic.
Well, his dialogue changes. Even the scenes that we see him that we heard before, his dialogue changes a bit, doesn't it? Isn't
I think
changed up a bit?
Yeah, and there's more to it. I think this plays more just like a straight conversation. We get Albert being a dick, which is fun.
Yeah.
I didn't think we were going to talk about Judy. I thought we were going to keep Judy out of it. Albert's great. I love that stuff. But yeah, those are kind of the other bigger scenes that I really appreciate. But again, yeah, we kind of talked about. I don't know what it adds to my understanding of anything. Yeah. Trying to think. There's more stuff with Cooper in the lodge. He asks the arm the question, how do I get out of here? The arm answers very clearly. And how could you mistake what he says? There's no place to go but home. Great.
I keep forgetting
Thanks, arm.
until certain moments like that where I'm like, oh yeah, they had to film like this backwards.
Yeah.
And how that,
Yeah.
translates to reversing it. But they have that scene twice, don't they? There's differences. One of them's just a different camera angle, uncut.
Yeah, well, because one time they come in and the ring is on the table, and they do another where it's like almost the identical scene. They come in, the ring is not on the table, and Cooper asks, "Where's the ring?"
But there's only one of those scenes in the film, right?
Yes.
And is the ring's on the table, right?
Yes, because we don't see the second one, the one that is in the missing pieces, ties into Annie. We see Annie being taken into the hospital, and we see her say the same thing that she said to Laura, which then just kind of like solidifies this weird time shifting weirdness that's going on. And then establishes that this ring that we have seen where everyone who has put it on has died in a grisly manner is taken by some nurse. And who knows where it goes. But yeah, are there any other scenes in there that you guys are feeling particularly like you want to talk about? I think they're great. I have a great time watching them. But yeah, there's not a whole lot that's like super groundbreaking. I think the biggest stuff is maybe that Annie scene. I think is really fascinating. We see the next 10 seconds that would have been in the show of just Cooper pretending he's on the ground and then still not having brushed his teeth. Come on, Doppelgoop, get it together. But yeah, I think that's kind of it.
We didn't mention the fight, did we?
Oh, we didn't.
Awful fight.
That's the very first. That's the opening one, isn't it?
I think.
I guess we start out. No, not quite, because there's this stuff with
There's an extended scene of the two FBI agents at the beginning.
Yeah,
where
eventually we get to
was good cuts there because the way it's edited is like, all right, we're gonna go find somewhere to sleep. No, we're gonna get something to eat. And then and then that's where it cut in the original film, but then it just drags on and it's just
and we have him talking to the guy at the front of Hap's diner for longer.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah.
The original the scene that's in the movie of the lamp is a lot better.
Yeah. Because you don't see it. Like in this you see it before. Yeah, it's established, and I like when that's revealed. Okay. Well, let's move on real quick. I'm just going to kind of bullet point some stuff from the Secret History of Twin Peaks.
Oh, also, Laura doesn't like asparagus, and that is her worst crime, probably. Horrible person.
Yes. And that's a big callback to the show, too.
Oh, did you want to talk about the Lucy scene? No, we already talked about it, but is there more? There wasn't anything else you had on that? Okay.
Just remember it.
Other than it has a weird callback.
Yeah.
That's surprisingly important,
It'll be called back very soon in like the stuff we watched this week, so... It's dumb. Whatever. So, The Secret History of Twin Peaks is a book that Mark Frost wrote. It is a 360-page book, and it is this collection of documents and newspaper articles and journal entries, and it is basically framed in the whole idea that it is a dossier that has come into the possession of the FBI,
Does it say how they got it?
so it is the agent who is working on it and kind of providing commentary throughout it just knows that it was found in this like handmade box that was buried, and it is put together by someone that's just referred to as the archivist. And the only indication of who the FBI agent is that's putting this together is we have their initials, which are TP. But basically, this
Terry
is
Pratchett.
It's Terry Pratchett. This is the Lost Discworld novel. Anyways, so this basically is a smattering of like history of Twin Peaks, starting with Lewis and Clark's expedition, meeting the Nez Perce Indians, and Meriwether Lewis coming into the possession of the Owl Cave ring, which we have come to see in Firewalk with Me. This ring then is lost for a while, then is recognized again as being on the finger of Jack Parsons, who is one of the founders of JPL, like rocket technology back in the 40s. The ring is then seen on the finger of Richard Nixon, and then I believe is lost again. I don't think it's outlined where it was between Nixon and Teresa Banks. So anyways, this ring has really been around for a while. And it kind of insinuates that it has some form of power. The people who do possess it seem to die strange deaths, except for Nixon, which is a weird thing. I don't know. But how
did the JPO guy die?
An explosion.
Oh, okay.
So
rockets.
Shockingly, yeah. In which his arm was completely vaporized.
Oh.
And the ring was
right
not
arm?
found. Yes.
Wait, isn't it his left? I don't even know.
So that's the other thing. In the case of Teresa Banks and Laura Palmer and Annie, I believe it's on their left hand.
Peaks,
Is it on their right?
Oh, I thought it was their right. Because Mike's is his left is gone, right?
Yes. So yeah, and everyone in this, it's on their right hand. Only to confirm, I thought it was left.
I don't
in Firewatch Me. Anyways, I don't know that it probably matters. But basically, the main portion of this book follows everyone's favorite character from the TV show, Doug Milford.
Oh, of course.
Who is the owner of the newspaper, who gets sexed to death.
Gone too soon.
And basically, you find out Doug Milford was involved in Project Sign, and then Project, I can't remember. It starts with a G, but basically his whole job was going around for the government. He was a man in black. Anytime there were UFO sightings or anything like that, he would show up and he would take down the accounts, and then later he would do everything he could to discredit any of those things. But we also learned that when he was younger, he had similar experiences in the woods around Twin Peaks. And also when he was an adult, he witnessed 3 children get abducted or whatever by some white light, and then they disappeared. In his account, he never says he saw like a UFO, like a disc or anything, but just this white light. And those 3 children were Margaret Lanterman, the log lady, Carl Rod, the manager of the Fat Trout Trailer Park, and another man named Alan Traharn, who died of cancer in the 80s. They don't really know much else about him, but they do know that Carl Rod and the log lady were both, they disappeared for days, thought they, and she kind of recounts that in the show. So it kind of goes into that a little bit more.
Wait, so were they all 3 abducted like at the same moment? Or
yes, okay. Yes, on the same night. They were like in the same.
What was
class.
He doing hanging out with 3 kids?
So he was a scout leader or something that was like doing something with a class that was out in the woods, and they got lost. And when they were searching for them, he saw that happen. And then a couple days later, they showed back up again, and they didn't know any time had passed. That kind of stuff. So it goes into a deep history of Twin Peaks, talks about the kind of 3 founding families, which are the Martells, the Packards, and the Horns. It's got a lot of cool stuff about characters from the show that seemingly don't necessarily play into the mythology of this a whole lot. Ed and Norma's story is slightly different in this book. And that is the notable thing about this book is there are some continuity things that aren't accidental. There's like a stamp on a postcard in this book that is about the moon landing, but the letter is postmarked like 4 months before anyone landed on the moon, and that particular stamp wasn't released until like a year later after this letter was sent.
And do they like mention that, or is it stuff people figured out?
It's stuff that people have figured out, but it's like it's so prevalent. It's like it's stuff that's like, why would this be in here if it wasn't? You know what I mean? And this book is really a compilation, I feel like, of Mark Frost's obsessions. It's got a ton of stuff about secret societies, from the Masons to, it mentions Bohemian Grove, which Bohemian Grove, the big thing they do is they burn that statue of a giant owl. Yep. All of that stuff. But it also mentions, owls are connected to these alien abductions and things like that. What are you looking at?
Was that just a noise?
I don't know. I heard it. There was some weird noise.
Let's listen back. I'm pretty sure that was a voice.
It's someone saying owl backwards.
Wah.
But yeah, some of the other cool things that are in this book are you get to hear a first-hand account of Jacoby doing ayahuasca. Which is really great. And also, I just want to read a little bit where Jacoby describes why he is wearing those weird-ass glasses that he wears. And basically, it's tied to the fact that when Nadine got her eye shot out, he had filled out this doctor's report. He was the person who was, like, attending to her mental health at that point. And he talks about, he goes into this huge long diatribe about how maybe she had subconsciously willed her left eye to be shot out because the left eye is connected to the right hemisphere of the brain, which is connected to our intuition. So now she's operating with this blind intuition, and hopefully it's going to open up her creative things to invent these drape runners. Anyways,
where did he graduate?
He got really high. Like, basically, that's what you learn about Jacoby is he went and did drugs with Indians, which is cool. So he says in this whole long thing about Nadine, he says, final thought, a regret, really. Patient would have been a perfect candidate to test my new optical integration system. Glasses with one red polarized to test my new optical integration system. Glasses with one red polarized. I just read that. Why is that?
I thought he was going full Ezekiel.
No, that's actually how this is written. I don't know if that's a typo. I didn't catch that before. But he says, glasses with one red polarized lens for the right eye, one blue polarized lens for the left. My working theory being that the red spectrum slightly suppresses activity in the left or logical hemisphere, while the blue spectrum does the same in the spatial intuitive side of the brain, and that when worn together, although it does tend to give reality a slightly purple tint, the patient tends to experience increased integration between the two spheres by increasing activity within the corpus callosum and encouraging the two sides to work together. They work for me, but that's preaching to the choir. So there you go. The mystery of why Jacoby wears blue and red glasses solved.
That was an answer that I thought we were going to get very early on. And as the show went on, I'm like, we're never going to get this answer.
Well, and that, see?
Yeah.
All you had to do was wait a very long time.
Just got to learn how to read.
The other thing, it does outline what happened at the bank explosion.
Oh.
So it does confirm Pete Martell is dead.
Oh, no.
The Delbert Mibbler, dead. I mean, we saw his glass fly off. That was pretty clear. In the newspaper in here, it reminded me, they do not know Andrew Packard is alive still. Like, that's not common knowledge. So they're like, some other guy is dead? And Audrey was injured, but taken to the hospital. And they said that she was probably protected from the blast by Pete. Because he was found like on top of the vault door on top of her. So he may have protected her from the blast, which is good for Pete. What a way to go.
Well, that pisses me off because now we're not going to see Pete in number 3 unless we see him as like a ghost.
Well, yeah. I mean, we wouldn't have seen him anyways because Jack Nance died.
Oh, did he?
In a while ago, like 10 years ago.
Damn
I
it!
think.
I was
which is a
excited to see
bummer.
like old Pete.
Yeah, that would have been really good. I really would have loved that.
We just need David Lynch to do another season of Twin Peaks and have everybody be holograms.
Yeah. Well, just deep fakes.
Artificially aged. The whole show could be old people. Everybody in it could just be old people.
I would love him to just take the resources that like other people have already done. So like we have Tarkin in there. Like they just buy it from Disney. They had Tarkin and
Carrie Fisher.
Tupac. Yeah. Maybe even The Rock is the Scorpion in the Scorpion King at the end of The Mummy Returns. Even though that's technically not the same thing.
It's the worst. That's basically it just looks like it's made out of clay by hand.
You could put him in the Black Lodge. He's one of the Black Lodge characters.
As long as he's the silhouette behind the curtain that I never actually see what it is.
Imagine him talking backwards.
So one of the other notable things is Audrey, before going to the bank, has written a letter basically stating that the reason she's going to the bank is to protest her father's development of the Ghostwood Estates, which in the show is not the case. Like her father isn't the one developing that. So it's another one of those things where it's like, here's like a weird discrepancy between this and the show. It is confirmed that Hank is killed in prison.
Oh.
So that's great.
Wait. Oh, just because you just went to prison and got killed?
Yeah.
In prison? Okay.
Yeah, I think that it does say that it's like a cousin of the Renaults. Of course it is, because they're fucking everywhere. Yeah. And then it goes on this very long section that involves Richard Nixon, L. Ron Hubbard, Jack Parsons, and Aleister Crowley.
Man, I am on board for this.
It's really great. And basically, you get the idea. Hubbard comes to Nixon. He's like, listen, John Parsons is doing some bullshit. And he like tells him, he's like, he read this book by Aleister Crowley, and now he's been dragging me out to the desert in the middle of New Mexico to do these sex magic rituals to try to like draw down this ancient evil force.
Yeah, this is common knowledge. This happened.
Yeah. But it's the cool thing about this book is like there's actual stuff that is like kind of verifiable. Like there are enough connections here that you're like, yeah, this could fill in the gaps. This would be fucking dope. But yeah, so it introduces the idea. So Aleister Crowley becomes this huge thing. His like whole religious movement, Thelema, becomes this huge centerpiece of this thing, and that John Parsons became obsessed with. And he was doing like some kind of weird sex rituals while also working on the rocket technologies that would facilitate the atomic bombs. Stuff like that.
Oh, something you showed me of season 3 could be coming together here.
Yeah. So what the fuck? There's like these weird connections. But it does mention this weird ancient evil, this mother of destruction that they're trying to summon. And I think the cool thing that this book does is it basically takes all this alien stuff, but it also puts it in the light of like, you know what? I don't know that these are extraterrestrial beings. Basically the conclusion that Doug Milford comes to by the end of this is he's like, they may be extraterrestrial, but they may also be extra dimensional. And that's the thing that he was more concerned about. And anyways, so he continues to do that. Aleister Crowley wrote a book that is mentioned in this called Moonchild, which is the only novel that Aleister Crowley wrote, and it is about a lodge of white magicians and a lodge of black magicians who are both...
Is this a real book?
This is a real book.
Okay. Who
are both using magic to try to summon the Antichrist.
Huh.
Cool.
So
are they working together, or are they like racing to...
I haven't read it. I do own this book, and I'm hoping to read it soon because I want to know if there are any weird connections. But yeah, so that's the only other time I've really heard like lodge, like white and black lodges mentioned in that way. Which may
Does
mean
Mark
that
Frost has like? I mean, we've talked about like his beliefs before.
Yeah.
Has he like? Did he just go on like a huge soul searching quest and like try a bunch of these different religions, or is he just interested because they're so weird?
I think that's mostly it. Like Mark Frost is a Jungian. Like he's very much about the whole shadow self and like that stuff. That is all very much Mark Frost's belief of like basically psychologically coming to terms with ourselves is kind of that spiritual journey that we take. And I think he's just fascinated. He's a huge history buff, and I think he's just fascinated by the occult. And he, in his own words, he's like, I'm just a tourist here. He's like, I'm not an expert on the occult stuff, but I just am really fascinated by it. And like,
Yeah.
so, but yeah, so, and the idea that the White and Black Lodges are maybe just taken directly from that Aleister Crowley novel is pretty interesting. So Nixon at some point takes Doug Milford and Jackie Gleason
This book,
to a bunker where they see an alien type figure that phases in and out of reality, like appears and disappears in this glass room, and really freaks him the fuck out. And then Nixon gets impeached and is basically like, there's this other organization that is shutting down the alien research that you're doing because they've just basically been following you and stealing all your shit. So I'm going to try to create this. Richard Nixon was like trying to create this other shadow alien organization to race them to find stuff.
With all the shit he was doing, he got impeached for like the smallest things.
I know. And I'm like, I wish they'd just held off for like a few months so Doug Milford really could have gotten on his feet and like
the
gotten
case
some more
wide
alien
open.
answers. But basically, so Doug Milford then moves back to Twin Peaks. Oh, the other thing, Jack Parsons lived in a house made with wood from Twin Peaks that he felt had a spiritual aura. Fucking cool and weird. So anyways, Doug Milford moves back to Twin Peaks, buys the newspaper, as we all know, and then welcomes a new someone from the military is coming to our small town to live here.
Oh.
Major Garland Briggs moves there when Bobby is 12, so like 5 to 6 years before the show. And he is there to oversee the construction of something up in the woods with land that has been taken through eminent domain. Thank you, government. And basically what we now know as listening post alpha, where they had been, getting the deep space transmissions and then also stuff from the woods, the Cooper stuff. We also learned Gordon Cole and Philip Jeffries visited listening post alpha, and knew about it. So whatever that means.
And you said that David Bowie was not able to film any scenes for season 3, correct?
Yes, he was.
That's sad.
He was too sick at that point.
But there was stuff written for him.
Yeah, and Philip Jeffries is a presence in the next season.
Question about that.
Yeah.
I saw a post on Reddit earlier this week that said
no.
something about David Bowie not being happy with his voice or something, and so they had a different voice actor.
Yeah. So when David Bowie was doing Firewalk with Me, he did that Southern accent, and he always hated it just because he thought he did a terrible job. So when David Lynch contacted him about the new season, David Bowie was like, you can use whatever you want of my stuff from that. I just don't want my voice to be the one because I think it sounds like shit. So
Okay.
there are some lines from Firewalk with Me in season 3. I don't feel like that's a huge spoiler.
That are like re-recorded?
Yeah, that are re-recorded.
Got it. Okay.
And it's not it sounds pretty different, but it's not too jarring. But yeah, it's a bummer because at that point he was just he's just too sick to do anything, and it's a real bummer. But yeah, he lives on in a way I'm sure Bowie would be proud to live on. We'll see how everyone reacts to that when we get there. But so basically all of that happens. They build listening post alpha and are like continuing this alien research that Doug Milford has been doing forever. Here's where it gets kind of fun and dumb. So Lana Milford, God damn it, she comes, hooks up with Doug Milford. The archivist who is writing this is like, I have an unsubstantiated theory that I can't support, but I think Lana Milford might have been an assassin sent by people from Doug Milford's past to make sure that he died.
That's incredible.
Which might redeem that character. Everything that character does just about in my mind. If she is some crazy assassin sent by some other alien hunter to kill Doug Milford, fucking rad, dude. The other thing, here's the other big discrepancy. The Miss Twin Peaks pageant is mentioned. Annie is never mentioned.
What?
Mark Frost did an interview where someone asked him the question, why isn't Annie mentioned as winning the Miss Twin Peaks pageant in this book? Because it seems like she probably would be. And Mark Frost said, I'm pretty sure we all remember Lana Milford winning the Miss Twin Peaks pageant. What the It's weird. It's just weird and fucking cool.
He's like committed to a bit outside of the show, right?
Yes! It's oh man.
Yeah.
This shit is so fascinating to me. Anyways, so that all goes down. At the end of the book, the archivist reveals himself as who he is. It's Major Garland Briggs, who has been entrusted by a lot of the documents in here were things that Doug Milford had collected, and then basically Garland Briggs went through and kind of provided his own commentary, tried to make sense of all these things after he had died. And one of the things that Doug Milford told Garland was that he was going to become. It was his turn to be the Watcher in the woods. And at that point in the conversation, he rolled up his sleeve and showed Garland Briggs the thing that we see, the 3 triangles that we see on Garland after he's disappeared. Mm-hmm. And also, I forgot to mention, Carl Rod and Margaret and the Log Lady also had those marks, and we saw that in the show.
Yeah, but hers were different.
Yeah.
So were Milford's the same?
So Milford's was in this book, that's another thing that's different.
They all have the same one.
They all have the same one. And Margaret and Carl's are behind their right knee.
Which hers was not.
Hers was not. Hers was like on her ankle or something.
Oh, I thought it was also like on her arm or something.
Maybe it was. I don't remember. Anyways, it wasn't behind her knee.
Yeah.
So that is another small difference in this, where they all have the same mark. Carl has it. And there's a lot of really cool stuff about Carl Rod. It kind of talks about him. He was in the Korean War and then got basically abandoned behind enemy lines and had to survive for a long time, and like came back with this really severe PTSD, and now just manages this trailer park where he's like this really good dude that's kind of rough around the edges, but there's like a lot of really cool character stuff in this book that I really enjoy. But anyways, so basically, yeah, so he tells Garland he's going to be the Watcher in the woods, and apparently he left a letter. He had sent Garland Briggs a letter the night that he died, that basically said, I just realized I've basically spent my whole life chasing this stuff, and you have this family, and I'm asking you to do this. He's like, and that's really unfair, and you shouldn't do it. Basically, you should wait until you find someone else who can help you. And Garland Briggs is like, so I kind of stopped for a while, and then Laura Palmer's murder happened. Who shows up? Dale Cooper. He gets that message, Cooper, realizes, holy shit,
okay.
This is the guy that's going to help me solve all this stuff. And he has some kind of breakthrough. I can't remember exactly what, but he finds something, and he tries to call Cooper, but it's the night that Cooper and Truman have gone. It's the night of the Twin Peaks pageant, and he talks to Truman. He's like, Cooper is gone. Don't know where he is. So then he's like, okay, well, have him call me when he's back. And he does. And when Cooper shows up, obviously it is Doppel Cooper that has come out of the Black Lodge. And basically in this writing, Garland Briggs is like, he's at the door now. And then the next entry is like, something is wrong. This is not Cooper. I have to activate this Mayday protocol. Don't know what that is, but essentially that's the way that this dossier ends. And then the last page reveals the name of the agent who has been compiling this for the FBI as Tammy Preston, who is a character that we will meet in season 3 the return of Twin Peaks, whatever we want to call it.
Do like purists not call it season 3?
No, I mean, I think you can. I think that the reason people don't is because it's so different. It's almost misleading to label it as season 3 because it's so different from the first 2 seasons of Twin Peaks.
Man, I'm excited.
So
I'm really excited.
Yeah. And so to kind of think of it as its own thing. But this is a really cool book. If you're into alternate history stuff or anything, or like I said, I kind of had you guys look through it. There's so many cool, dumb pictures and like little hints in the pictures and just fun stuff. If you're into Twin Peaks at the lore side at all, or into aliens or whatever, it's just a fun thing to read. And you kind of get a better idea of kind of Pete and Catherine's marriage. Ed and Norma's relationship has a slightly different story in this that's really interesting and maybe even a little more tragic. But yeah, it's really fun, and it's definitely the passion of Mark Frost, like this stuff. And we'll probably talk a little bit about the final dossier too. We might have to have an episode after we finish The Return that's like a decompress, debriefing of what we watch, and kind of maybe go into some stuff in the final dossier that references some stuff from this new season. But yeah, that's it. This week we're gonna start the next season. I can't wait. I'm super excited to watch these with you guys. Do you just have any last thoughts or predictions going into season 3 or expectations?
Gosh, I mean, from what you've just described of this book, I am hopeful and excited that that's the kind of tone we'll be getting, and some of those things. I mean, obviously, there's that one at the end of that character you talked about, but
right,
some of that cool shit being explored further in this. I honestly am so clueless at this point, and also don't want to attach too many hopes to the answers I want because I'm pretty sure I'm not going to get them.
Yeah. That's a good attitude to have going into this season. I will say that.
Great. Yeah. So yeah, I don't really have a whole lot. I'm ready for The Return.
Cool. Justin, do you have anything?
I don't think so. This whole experience, there's just been so many different things about it that have been there's so many unique aspects to this. Watching Fire Walk with Me feels like its own adventure, basically. And then season 1 is so different from season 2, and it's all Twin Peaks, but I don't know. It's strange to be exploring all of this under the Twin Peaks umbrella when there's so many distinct aspects to it.
Right, yeah.
So I'm excited to see what happens going into The Return and what new stuff we get to experience, because this has been a ride.
Yeah.
There is nothing ever. I have not experienced anything like this.
Super
ever.
unique.
Yeah. It's really cool. So, and there's always, that's one of the things I love about it. There's always more layers to peel back. I'm sure there's hundreds of things, I'm sure, even within this book that I haven't really scratched the surface on. And I mean, I've Googled sex magic 6 times because of this book, so that's a thing.
Incognito mode that was previously mentioned.
Oh no, I'd love further recommendations on what to look into if I'm
get a lot of Red Hot Chili Peppers, probably.
Yeah. Would you also like Blood and Sugar? Well, anyways, then we'll sign off until we return to talk about the return. So signing off. This is Tyler Harris.
This is Tyler McKinley. We never introduced ourselves.
Oh, whoops.
This is Justin Hammer. Hello and goodbye.
This is a bonus episode. It's not even real.
I'm not even going to put music on this one.
Do, but make it carnival music. just make it the Curb Your Enthusiasm like thing. The boom boom.